2016 was a golden year for gaming hardware. NVIDIA released what many people consider one of the most successful GPU lineups in history, and now it's officially been 10 years. So what if we rewind time back to 2016 and build a $2,000 gaming PC from that era? But today, for only around $400, that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to recreate a high-end 2016 gaming setup, bring it back to the present day, and see how it handles modern AAA titles. Can a former flagship system still compete in today's demanding games, or has time finally caught up with it? Let's travel back 10 years and find out. While digging around, I came across a recommended PC build from 2016 from some YouTuber back then, and the two main components were an i7 6800K and a GTX 1080. I managed to pick up this CPU for just $30 on eBay, and when I opened the box, yep, it really was an i7 6800K. Most people know this chip came out in 2016, but what a lot of people don't realize is that this CPU was actually ahead of its time. Back then, it was a 6-core, 12-thread processor built on 14 nanometers at a time when 6-core CPUs were still far from mainstream. It also comes with 15 megabytes of L3 cache, which is noticeably more than many later mainstream 6-core CPU that usually sit somewhere around 9 to 12 megabits. This was Intel's first real step into the 14-nanometer era, laying the groundwork for architectures like Skylake, Kaby Lake, Coffee Lake, and even Rocket Lake. So despite what some people say, this wasn't really a stagnation period for Intel. It was more of a time of heavy refinement. On paper, the official max turbo clock is only 3.8 GHz, but the real strength of this CPU is how well it overclocks. With a bit of tuning, hitting around 4.3 GHz is completely realistic. And because this is a much bigger chip, it obviously doesn't use a regular socket that we're used to seeing. This one runs on LGA 2011 V3 with the X99 chipset. Now, original brand name X99 motherboards are still pretty expensive, so I went with a board called the X99 TFQ, which costs around $100. And if that still sounds like too much, don't worry. There are plenty of other X99 variants out there that are much cheaper. For cooling, I'm using a Cooler Master T400i air cooler. This design is definitely old school and it's no longer being made, but it still gets the job done. I picked this one up for $20. Next up is RAM. Back in 2016, 16 gigabytes was basically the gold standard for gaming, and honestly, it still holds up pretty well today. Since RAM prices aren't exactly cheap right now, I went with two 8GB sticks, giving me a total of 16 gigabytes, and the pair cost me about $70. Next up is something you simply can't skip in any gaming PC, the graphics card. From the very beginning of this video, I've been talking about one of the most iconic and successful GPU of all time. A card that a lot of people still use today, even years later. And of course, I'm talking about the GTX 1080 with 8GB of VRAM. When it first launched, this card cost around $599, which was a lot of money back then. But today, you can pick one up for about $100, and for that price, you're getting what was literally the most powerful GPU of 2016. That's honestly kind of insane when you think about it. Next up is storage. Even though NVMe SSD already existed back then, they were still considered high-end tech and were way too expensive for most people. So the majority of users stuck with SATA SSD, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. For this build, I'm using a Samsung 870 EVO 500 gigabytes, which I picked up for just $14 on eBay. After that comes the power supply. I went with a Cooler Master MWE 750 watts, and that cost me $55. As for the case, it's an older one I had lying around. I honestly don't remember how much I paid for it, so I'll just value it at around $20. And with all of that added up, the total cost of this system comes out to $409. Alright, now it's time to power it on and see how this thing actually performs. Oh my god. The system turns on, but the screen is completely black. No signal, no response at all. The motherboard logo shows up for a split second, then disappears and it throws out an AE error code. That usually points to either a GPU issue or a CMOS battery problem. I tried both, swapped the GPU, replaced the CMOS battery, but nothing worked. At that point, I started suspecting the BIOS. Since this board is pretty old, I figured the BIOS version might be too low to properly support the CPU. So I installed a different CPU. downloaded the latest BIOS, and flashed the board. The process itself is pretty straightforward. You can find tutorials literally everywhere on YouTube. And now, this is the moment of truth. I hit the power button, and oh my god, it finally posted. Thank God. I booted into the system, opened CPU-Z, and yep, it really is an i7. 6800K, 6 cores, 12 threads, scoring around 3,190 points in multi-core and 421 points in single-core. At that moment, I knew the build was finally alive. I tested Fortnite at 1080p using medium settings, and the performance was actually pretty solid. FPS sat at around 130, with almost no stuttering or noticeable lag. But here's the part that really confused me. The CPU clock speed was never fully utilized. It topped out at around 3.5 GHz, and even when I pushed the system to 100% load, it still wouldn't go past 3.4 GHz, while only drawing about 67 watts. And honestly, that didn't feel right. So I decided to try overclocking the CPU. I went into the BIOS, started changing things slowly, step by step, testing and adjusting as I went. But that's when problems started showing up. The system refused to boot. I had no choice but to pull the CMOS battery and reset everything I had just changed in the BIOS. After that, I did some research on this motherboard, and unfortunately it turns out this board doesn't support CPU overclocking through the BIOS. I also tried installing Intel Extreme Tuning Utility, but it wouldn't install at all, even though I'm running Windows 10 22H2. So at this point, I had to accept reality. Overclocking just wasn't happening on this setup. That said, I'm not giving up on this CPU. I will overclock it in a future video once I pair it with a proper gaming motherboard. Alright, let's get back to gaming performance. In Fortnite running at 1440p, the system still manages to hold around 100 FPS, and the best part is how stable it feels. The CPU handles it really well. I didn't notice any major drops at all. Next up is a game that actually takes better advantage of multiple cores. Minecraft. At 1080p with a 32-chunk render distance, it still delivers some really impressive numbers. FPS stays above 200, and at times it even spikes past 500 FPS. When switching to 1440p, performance remains solid, staying above 100 FPS. Then I turned on shaders, specifically Bliss. The visuals look incredibly realistic, and even with shaders enabled, FPS stays very stable at around 100. At 1440p with shaders, FPS does drop a bit, but nothing dramatic. It stays consistently between 70 and 80 FPS. Overall, this setup handles Minecraft surprisingly well, even under heavier loads. Moving on to Counter-Strike 2, I cranked the settings up to high. FPS stays above 100 most of the time, but it's definitely not as stable as the games I tested earlier. That said, for a fast-paced shooter like CS2, this is still a very playable and solid experience. Switching up to 1440p, I honestly didn't expect much, but wow. FPS still stays over 100, and you can even push the resolution to 4K without losing too much performance. Next up is an older AAA title, Tomb Raider. This game is known for being well optimized, so I maxed out the settings at 1080p. FPS sits around 180, sometimes jumping past 200, but it can dip down to about 130, so it's not perfectly stable. At 1440p, FPS hovers around 130, which is still an excellent number for this kind of game. And finally, let's talk about a much heavier AAA title, Cyberpunk 2077. At high settings and 1080p, FPS stays around 60, and in some scenes it even pushes past 80 FPS. When I bumped the resolution up to 1440p, frame rates dropped to around 50, but overall I had no trouble enjoying the game at all. With this setup, you can comfortably play pretty much any game at 1080p and 1440p, and even 4K in games that aren't too demanding. And honestly, that's been a really great experience for me, especially considering this is a 10-year-old PC. The only real downside is that I haven't been able to fully unlock this CPU's true potential yet. But overall, I'm genuinely impressed with what it can still do. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next video.